Hi, Sam Baxendale, co-founder of Kinetik Hiring. So for today's Insight and Demand interview series, we're going to talk about the role of HR as a business partnering function. Now, in the years that I've been in Malaysia, HR has moved on leaps and bounds. Progress has been made keeping up with demand. But to be quite honest with you, there's a lot of work to be done. HR is still not front and center as a key function within businesses to have a truly transformative impact. So there are various solutions to this, but to raise the profile of HR as a transformative function, we are today speaking with Elisabeth Bourst, who is a vastly experienced international leader in the field of HR, to talk about how HR can truly drive forward the interests of businesses in Malaysia. Truly hope you enjoy the session. So Liz, thank you so much for joining us today. So before we start with the discussion, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've been up to?
Absolutely. My name is Liz. I'm in HR for more than 10 years now. I started my studies in legal, and then, I'm such passionate with companies and everything that I actually decided to graduate in HR.
Okay.
And I've been doing HR since then. Started in Europe, now based in Asia for more than 2 years.
Okay.
And planning to continue my journey in HR.
Fantastic. Good stuff. Well, let's crack on with the discussion points then. So we're going to talk about business partnering. So for the benefit of the audience, why don't you tell us a little bit about what your take on what is true HR business partnering all about?
I feel like for me, it's mainly about the mindset. Obviously, you get HR business partnering, you can have dedicated role, but ultimately, if you ended up having the HR function or focusing on partnering is interesting. I think maybe the most simple way to actually present that is, so HR is a support function, right?
Yes.
So if you do it in a very more day-to-day support, you have people that are supporting you on very operational stuff, like sometimes doing your calendar, booking whatever grab you can do, and this is very important, right?
Yes.
But it's kind of only part that the support that you can get,
Of course.
if you can build the trust.
Yes.
So you can go to next level.
Yeah.
You can have someone who's actually helping you to take major decisions in your life. You can have this type of discussion that is making you grow. These people you're talking to might have actually good insights as well.
Yes.
So I feel like this is what HR is able to do if you reach the business partnering level.
Okay.
I think that's what I'm after.
So if we're looking at HR and looking to take it to the next level in a summary way, how do you think great HR can impact the bottom line in a positive way? In what ways does great HR really improve businesses and ultimately make them more profitable?
I think the first step to make that happen is, for me, HR to understand the business.
Yeah.
That's critical. So when I'm talking about understanding, it's not only about figures, right? It's very easy to talk to, that's the much revenue of the company and everything. But when you talk properly with your leaders, you need to know what they're going through and what they've been dealing with.
Yes.
And if you ended up with that level of empathy, then somehow strategic is not that more a big word.
Yes.
It's just because you know what they're doing, you're helping them with your HR tool.
Yes.
And then you can help in the strategy. And you can help employees, managers, companies at every level.
Yes.
And have a seat at the table, as we all like to say.
Yes.
It's very natural when you are business savvy.
Yep.
And then your leaders can be HR savvy.
Yeah.
And then hopefully you can have a very open discussions.
So trust and empathy, credibility is key. So how does that then translate into perhaps policies or great HR practices that can then have a positive impact on the business?
I feel like the operational part of it, because generally when it comes to policies, it not often, but sometimes it narrowed down to policies. You do have policies that are, let's say, customer focus. And so you think about the employee experience, all those type of stuff, and you protect your company, obviously, but you're trying to do it in a nice way and in a more business-oriented way.
Yes.
And then the must-have is taken care of, because
Yes.
obviously it's still part of HR. You still need to do operations very well. You still need to get paid on time and all those type of stuff. But once you have that fundamental, then you can also switch into strategy. And then you can discuss, and then you can make it happen.
Okay.
That's just the way I see things, the way they connect.
Okay. So Liz, looking at the Malaysia market, or indeed the global market, and bringing those ideas to Malaysia, can you give us some examples, walk through some examples of great HR policies that have been based on a kind of an HR partnering mindset that you think have had a really positive transformational impact on businesses?
I think there is a lot, to be honest.
Yeah.
If I had to give names, one of the first one that's going to my mind is Lazada.
Right.
Because the chief people officer there is actually also taking care of business. And I think this is one of the initiatives that is changing everything. Then, he's able to understand what the business is going through. And again, you can do this exchange. That's a good example for me.
Yeah.
You have brands like Lego who are also doing a very good job in terms of brand awareness, and they're changing pretty much everything in terms of HR, but they do it relying on analytics.
Okay.
So this is also a good way to do business partnering. It's
Yes.
a very objective way. You do analytics, you get the good KPIs, good initiatives. You have Heineken, who is doing a very good job in terms of inclusion and diversity as well, and
Okay.
those types are also very interesting. Yeah,
Okay.
so I think there is a lot of very good things out there.
Yeah.
My view is the best initiative is going to be the next one.
Right.
So you need to have HR continue to move,
Right.
continue to do this. I've actually looked at the KPMG report for 2020, and it said like 3 of the 5 leaders are actually doesn't feel really ready for what's coming.
Okay.
We need to change that.
Okay.
We need to not be afraid of what's coming and actually embrace initiatives when it comes to HR as well.
So you see HR's role as actually supporting, embracing future change on the part of leaders.
Absolutely.
That is an initiative that comes from HR.
We talk so much about change management.
Yeah.
You have to be a change champion if you want to be a good HR. You
Okay.
have to be.
Okay. Flipping that around a little bit, can you give us some examples or some learnings from maybe HR initiatives that haven't gone so well? Let's say businesses have tried to drive business partnering, but it's kind of fallen flat and not worked out. And maybe what learns can we take from that?
I feel like when you are trying to change HR, you should rely on the same magical trick that is actually working everywhere. Communication is key. How do you want to go? What do you want to implement? Taking a little bit of time, even though it's very difficult in the fast-paced environment that we are in, but still, change takes time. I think one of the main outcomes for me is often you ended up in a situation where the business who is trying to change HR is trying to implement all the things that is, like KPIs, making things very, very return on investment focused, all this type of stuff. And sometimes it can block the HR people a little. And then you have the HR people on the other side of the story saying, but HR is very different. You cannot apply the same thing as the other businesses.
Okay.
I think both of them are true and untrue.
Yes.
And if you ended up in a good level of communication,
Yeah.
then you can make it happen.
Yeah.
I think somehow the more you put KPIs and structured on every step of the business, you might going to struggle a little in business partnering.
Yeah.
Because there is about getting to know people.
Yeah.
And that takes time.
It could be a bit suffocating.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can be a little, yeah.
And it's an empathy game as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is a lot of money that's going to happen in HR, right? So I actually saw a report that is from the Society of Human HR Management saying that more than 3 billion is going to be invested in HR in 2025.
Wow.
You have to make that right.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
So where do you see what would be a good application of those funds? Where could that be best directed in your view?
Digital is obviously one of the first one.
Okay.
But digital is a way. It's a very good way, but it's a way. Training the HR as well.
Yes.
So HR gets better. Upskilling, very important. I think that would be the 2 main trend. And then customer focus, employee experience, we're already very much on that. But
Absolutely.
Candidate experience, making people feel good when it comes to HR processes.
Yeah, which ties into digital, because obviously platforms can support that.
It's a very good way to make it smooth, right? So,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we couldn't really talk about HR without mentioning the dreaded COVID-19. So in terms of the current climate, what impact do you think that's had on the role and recognition of HR currently?
I think it's been very important for HR to do a good job to go through that, because obviously people are getting to very difficult and never happened in the past situation, right? So it's very, very different. I feel like, so I like the quote around the goal is to work apart together and to learn how to do that. And it feels very challenging because HR, it's all about relationship with people. And how can you actually have a good relationship when it's, via whatever tool you're actually using. But it's doable. Maybe a little structure, maybe a little training as well, getting used to it, and then you can work obviously on key topics that are very important. So you work on the culture. How do you make sure the culture remains even if the people are not in the office? You work on engagement, obviously, and then you get performance. How do you evaluate performance with the trust, because it's also different. People are at home, you cannot actually control in the same way. Wellness, obviously. We talk about that in an episode. It was critical in the current context. It's very important. I think if you are employee focused, it kind of should be fine. And if you assume the fact that you're going to learn through this, it's going to be okay. For me, there is one thing that was a little more challenging to tackle, is that I think for the first time, maybe, I had to deal with fear management. Because sometimes people at home are actually going to be very scared of the virus and the fact, it can happen. We see a lot of companies opening again their offices and employees who doesn't want to go to the offices just because they don't feel secure enough. And then how do you actually tackle that if your business needs for the employee to come, right? So how do you manage fear? How do you force, obviously without forcing, because it's very important. I feel like I was a little more destabilized on how to handle that. But again, you can rely on your managers, and then you can try, and open communication is generally the best way to tackle that as well.
Absolutely, and I guess there's a connection with wellness there, but this is an entirely new category of emotional management.
And there is also the culture is popping in. Right? So obviously, I'm from France, I'm from Europe. Look at the number in France. Obviously, the way we manage is totally different, if we can say we manage. Here it's different, right? Here it's few cases, but people are still very scared. So how do you actually help them going through that?
I mean, do you think in the light of COVID and the pressure that's been put on HR, that's been a catalyst for good in terms of businesses having to realise how important a function human resources is?
Absolutely. Also, it can be a little overwhelming for HR. I think the opportunity is amazingly, there is a way to do things that we cannot do before. But we need to, sometimes HR may be a little overwhelmed about that. So
I see.
Just communication and sharing.
Absolutely. Coming a little bit back to Malaysia, where do you think we are in Malaysia right now, based on your last few years' experience here? Where do you think we are in terms of the recognition of HR as a critical business functioning, transformational function?
I've seen great initiatives and I've met amazing people. I think where we struggle today probably is, depending on who you are and who you work for, there is a significant discrepancy. If you are in a big company, naturally you might probably have processes going to take care of that already. You're going to have functions, you're going to have organization that's going to support you. So hopefully you're going to have the possibility to do a business partnering stuff. Small companies might be a little challenging, but again, that's not always true. You have companies like Fave or Brio HR that are doing an amazing work here, right? They're very disruptive. It is relying a little too much on, I think, on the willingness of people, and I think we can do better in terms of awareness, like what you are doing today, having the actual HR discussions, getting more people on board, getting more people aware of that, and there is much also around how do we get the good people ready. So obviously it goes back to trainings, getting people ready for what's coming, and it's getting there, and there amazing stuff.
Do you think there's an appetite to raise the profile of HR and have, as you say, more of a seat at the board table for that particular pillar of the business?
I think so. I think theory is always complicated because then you do general statements, but when you meet someone or when you have an actual business need, then it's happening. We also have more and more leaders that are naturally going to HR. That's also happening, and that's also very good. We're getting there.
What do you see the blockers? Because I think we can acknowledge there's work to be done. But what do you think have been the blockers to date? And what do you think we need to alleviate to get to a better place with this sort of impending change in front of us that you referred to?
I think the main blocker would be awareness for me about what HR is capable to do. I think sometimes when you're not familiar with it, you tend to underestimate HR. And again, go back to very operational stuff that are critical, but
Of course.
part of it. It's good to prove that HR can do more, and then it becomes natural. But you need to have the opportunity.
Yes.
And obviously the CEO and the leadership needs to go through that.
So as more case studies emerge,
Yeah.
and then that will raise the profile in itself,
Absolutely.
of course. Yeah. So Liz, for those businesses that are really looking to ramp up and raise the profile of HR to a more transformational function, what advice for businesses do you have, for businesses that have the appetite, but just maybe need the process or the platform to do so?
I think, because I generally tend to have a pragmatic approach as much as I can, my advice would be pick the good initiative. The first one. So you never have two chances to do a first impression, right?
Yeah.
So when you want to do that change, try to pick the good initiatives and also picking the good solution. So it's kind of quick wins, fast return on investment.
Yeah.
You don't have to do it on your own. There is like amazing tool or technique to do that today. You can do some design thinking. You can look at the HR value chain to see what's going to have an impact in your strategy.
Yeah.
Analytics, again, going back to that, it's critical because then if you know the pain point of your business, then if you find something that is strategic or business partnering solution,
Yes.
you're going to make a change for people's life.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to convince so hard.
Yeah.
Because you just prove your point by doing it.
Yeah, so it's not about going out of your way to try and find a way for HR to provide value. There's probably a situation in front of your nose that is more easily accessible, and that's a quick win. Yeah.
It depends, right? If you have the good support, you can do the plan.
Yeah.
You can do a quarter, you can do a roadmap, you can do a lot of things. You can be strategic from the start.
Yeah.
But if you have to fight the blockers, then it might be a good way to have a quick win to start to actually have those discussions.
Yeah. On a similar note, what about collaboration across the industry? You know, learning from peers. What are your thoughts on that?
Critical.
Yeah.
It would be a pity not to use the knowledge of your peers, right? It is very important, and it just make you better, clever by exchanging. If HR is not exchanging between people, who is going to do it, right?
Yeah.
So obviously you have to, and we have amazing talent in Malaysia.
Yeah. Any recommendations for people looking to reach out to peers in the market? In terms of, best ways of going about it?
Contacting you.
Yeah, could be.
No,
that's one idea.
That's the type of initiatives, right?
Sure.
Like you do have people that are very dedicated in sharing knowledge and making things moving in Malaysia. I've been, when I joined, I tried to reach out to them very naively around, hey, that's me, I'm new in Malaysia. A lot of them are actually extremely friendly and looking forward to talk to you.
Yeah.
Rely on your network might also be a good idea.
Yeah.
If you don't know someone, then probably the CFO sitting next to you is going to know someone, or whoever you actually work with is going to know someone, and you make it natural and human-oriented.
Yeah, so be proactive about it. Yeah,
absolutely. You have to. Yeah. At least at the beginning.
Absolutely. So Liz, the impression I get from what you're saying is that successful HR partnering is all about the relationship with other pillars within the business, like legal and finance. So based on that, can you talk to us a little bit about advice for people looking to maybe switch their career and bring that expertise into the HR function to really build on that partnering mindset? So any advice for someone in finance or legal that might want to make that transition?
I guess my first advice is it's doable.
Okay.
Like, don't be scared about this move. The HR portfolio is extremely wide. That's kind of also what we are talking about today. Like, you have very different ways to get into HR. All of them are good.
Yeah.
If you are finance, more probably the easiest move might be to go into comp and bend, for example, because then you have transferable skills. And that's absolutely doable. Maybe if you are more legal oriented, then you're going to start doing more like compliance, or you're going to do more, unfortunately, kind of restructuring stuff. But still, then you can get out of it because you rely on your skills to make that move.
Yes.
Sometimes you might need to have a certification.
Okay.
Also interesting.
Yes.
Not obviously needed, but it really depends on your profile and everything. But the journey is obviously possible.
Yeah.
And I think as an HR, I tend to welcome the people with a different background.
Okay.
Because again, it's about communication. It's about what you learn from others.
Yeah.
And someone with a different background is going to have a different way of taking things.
Yes.
And then you can just getting richer by sharing that.
So do you see it as a good thing? People coming from outside industry, other functions into the HR function.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I do. So
Yeah.
don't get me wrong. There is no. I have a very traditional HR stuff. So yes, I start legal and studies, but then I did HR all my day.
Of course.
And it's also obviously a very good way to jump into HR, right? You
Yeah.
can do it very traditionally, but you can also get using this opportunity on your company knowledge. If you're a good manager and you like to manage people all day, you'll probably already kind of be an HR, right?
Yes.
So you do need to get ready to learn the hard skills, because there is hard skills in HR that you need to get familiar with.
Of course.
But probably the soft skills is kind of already there.
Yeah. Okay.
So
that's a prerequisite.
Yeah, you can make this journey.
And what about the emphasis on certifications? Do you see that as an essential prerequisite, or as a bit of an add-on to maybe enhance someone's credibility?
I think it really depends. For me, it's not mandatory all the time. Again, if you get the story around, yes, I'm coming from finance, but during my journey, I have this, and this, and this, and you find a way, because that's always the challenge, right? You find a way for it to be doable from a recruitment perspective.
Yeah.
To have the opportunity to get those jobs, because that's what we're talking about today often. And you can convince the HR that you can be part of their word.
Yeah.
You don't need a certification.
Yes.
Maybe sometimes you actually want one.
Yeah.
So you will feel, for your own security, you will feel more legit if you have one. That's also absolutely doable.
Yeah.
And if you are coming from something that is very different, then probably a certification is going to help you to start with the good grounds and with the good foundations. So it depends on everyone.
On to practicalities. If some of our audience are thinking seriously about a career in HR, what advice do you have to them if they're, say, in the finance department right now, or the compliance department, let's say, and they're thinking seriously about a career move? What advice would you give to these people to make the switch?
I think if it's doable, my advice would be maybe trying it within your company already. Because again, you will have more transferable skills because you also know the company.
Of course. Right.
And it become easily a discussion around the development that you are supposed to have anyway in terms of people management within your company. So just express it and say, I'm actually interested about HR. I obviously get ready for this conversation. So, I've had this skills that I can be transferred. Maybe I need to go more in comp event, but I also know whatever you actually have to offer. And start this discussion. I think that if it's doable, it's generally a safer way to do a move that might be a little scary at first. If it's not doable and you really want to do it, then let's try to find other ways. But that might be an interesting move to try.
Okay. And what about for the graduate community out there? So Malaysia's a treasure trove of latent talent.
It is.
A lot of graduates out there. What advice would you give to people that maybe have a degree in, the sciences or maths, nothing to do with HR, but are actually interested in moving in a sort of people-oriented career? What advice would you give to them?
I think if you just graduated and you have kind of not yet enough to offer to a company, I would go for training, but again, training doesn't have to be, in HR we're very familiar with the 70-20-10, right? So it doesn't have to be do another certificate. It might actually be trying to find a job that is the closest one that you can get from HR.
Yes.
And continue to work on your self-awareness about the HR trends.
Okay.
Good example today to jump into HR when you're not in HR. You're digital savvy. Everybody is looking for digital. We are lacking of digital talent. You are actually very digital and you care about HR and you know a few stuff about HR. Probably you might going to be able to find a role, right?
Absolutely.
So trying to get this awareness, trying to understand what's going on in HR. If you are interested in analytics, same way. You're lacking of talent in analytics. Because that's not the natural HR DNA. You do analytics probably in finance before you care about HR. It's doable as well.
So it sounds like it's about opening up your thinking. HR is not this siloed area. It relates to many different skills and competencies you might have, and then you can channel it towards that direction.
There are so many challenges coming from HR.
Yes.
And the same KPMG report saying that 50% of the HR leaders feel unprepared to use technology available around them. So technology is a way. It's not the only way. There is a lot of things that are going to change. But getting ready for what's coming is a very good way. And it's an amazing job. I love it very much. So if you feel like you actually want to do this, try it.
Fantastic. So Liz, how time flies. So that brings us to the end of today's Insight on Demand, covering the importance of HR as a business partnering function. Thank you so much for joining us. Some wonderful insights shared today, and hopefully we've inspired some of our audience to make the switch to HR.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Our pleasure. Thank you. Okay guys, so that's all for today. So if you're looking to get an update on all the great footage from today's interview series, remember to go to our website, www.letsgokinetik.com, or go to our LinkedIn page, Kinetik Hiring, where you'll see in the section below all of the links to all of our various online sources. So please remember to visit. Most importantly, please give your thoughts and feedback in the comment section in the LinkedIn section. And if you enjoyed the session, remember to give us a big thumbs up. That would be greatly appreciated. And finally, if you're really interested in getting real-time updates in terms of new releases, sign up to our newsletter and you get that on a monthly basis. So thanks very much guys, and we look forward to you joining us for the next session.